I have a lot of laser cut wood kits on my layout, like this see, this is by Campbell, this Idaho Spring of Mine. And down here you can see in the foreground the American Model Builders pickle factory, and the shed is JL Innovation, and behind that is the feeder barn by Branch Line, and the fallen bar down there is by Branch Line, and up above you can see the 9 Mile House. That's also by American Model Builders. But what if you have a plastic model that's supposed to look like wood, like this drying shed that's next to my grain elevator? Now, it's made of plastic, but the actual building should look like wood. And up by my coal mine, I have this plastic a water tank, but it's supposed to be made of wood. So how do you make plastic look like wood? That's what this tutorial is about. I have purchased this old German model of a coal mine for use in modeling contests for my Model Railroad Club. Eventually it will find its way onto the N-scale modular layout that club members have built. And as you can see from the picture, it's supposed to be made of old, rotted, weathered wood. And the modeler here, who has built this one on the cover, has done a pretty good job. But when you open the box, what you see is bright, shiny, new styrene. The styrene does, however, have wood grain in the pieces that you can see. This is N-scale, so it's pretty small, but it's in there when you get up onto it. These are the roof pieces. It's a shake shingle roof. I was very pleased to see that the shake shingles in this kit are of an ununiform size, and they're pretty beat up, so it looks like they've actually been through a few dozen hailstorms and a lot of wind. So how am I going to get this to look like this? Well, I like to use chalk. Right here I have AIM Products makes a very fine chalk. That's Adventures in Miniature, I believe. I use their chalk for weathering all of the wood and plastic kits on my layout. But the chalk is not going to stick to this shiny styrene. So the first thing I'm going to do with every plastic kit I get is I'm going to spray every part with Testor's spray enamel. This is a light gray. I've chosen that color because old weathered wood is sort of a light gray once the sun has leached all the color of the wood from it. Those of you who do dry brushing, or rather air brushing, you can you're already set up for it. You don't need to buy this, but it's not expensive. It says $4.99 here, but with the Hobby Lobby coupon, this costs $3, and it will do 3 or 4 kits easily in N-scale. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a light spray on. We have to keep it light because we don't want the paint filling in any of the wood grain that is molded into the plastic. So we're going to keep it as light as we can, but we're going to cover everything, and we're going to cover it on both sides, because in this particular model you can see through it, and when you're able to see through something, you have to have color on the inside also. So the next step is to spray paint every piece in here with the Testor's spray enamel, so that the chalk that I use for coloring and weathering the wood will adhere. I'm outside on my patio to do my spraying to have good ventilation, and I spread out all the parts that I'm going to spray paint. Now I've got 2 pieces that have broken loose from their sprues, so because those pieces are going to be rather light and I don't want the pieces to blow away when I spray them, I'm going to take a little piece of masking tape and lay it down and stick these pieces to it like this so they won't blow away when I spray them. Now, I've shaken this can over 300 times and it's should be ready to go. I'm going to give it a little spurt. One of the things we have to be careful of is not getting drips of paint. I don't have a real problem with that with testers. It's very good. It does its job really well. But I'll take a little spray first just to make sure it's staying light. Okay. So now, keep it light and airy, because we don't want to fill in any of the molded wood grain. Just keep it nice and light. Quite simple. And when I finished, I will let this dry for about 30 minutes, maybe an hour. Then I will come back, turn everything over, and I will do the other side. Now, I may end up painting pieces that, or sides that don't really need to be painted, but that's not important. It's better not to have to come back and paint them again. So, just paint everything. All right? Now, I'll come back after I've finished painting the other side. All of my pieces are painted now, and as you can see, the wood grain that was molded into the plastic still shows through the thin layer of paint. And now we're going to apply gray chalk. And if you're wondering why I would put gray chalk on a piece of plastic that's already painted gray, let me show you. As you can see, the wood grain pops out now with the chalk applied. It's more of it gets on the high spots than it does in the low spots, and this makes the wood grain stand out, even in N scale. And I'll show you one more piece. As you can see here on this piece of decking, you can clearly see where I stopped applying chalk. I haven't changed the color that much, but I brought out the wood grain. And now I'll show you how I apply chalk. Right, I have a piece of a sprue with part of the building on it, the deck and the walls on one end. And the tools I'm going to use, I have two cheap paint brushes. I've cut the ends off to make them a little stiffer, and that helps me to grind the chalk into the paint. The chalk I'm using are AIM's light gray and dirty yellow. I also have a little paper towel here to wipe off extra powder, chalk powder, as I work. So we'll just start with the gray. And just run it in. Now the idea is not to cover 100% with the powder, powdered chalk. We want it hit and miss. That way it doesn't present a uniform presence like paint does. As you can see, paint, it's all one color, the color of the paint I use. But the chalk, even though the chalk is one color, because I'm only using it sporadically, hit and miss, it goes on darker some places and lighter others. And in some places it's not even there. And all of this gives it a more natural look. Because of the lack of uniformity of color. But just grind it straight on in. As you can see, it goes pretty fast. Now, I do have, I want to stop a second and show you, for big areas, I do have a bigger brush. But the reason I'm using the smaller one is because I want the chalk to get down in between the spaced boards that I have here. I want the chalk down in between it. And remember, I'm going to be putting chalk on both sides because the front of this building is open, so that the ore carts can come out and dump the coal. So you'll be able to see inside. Therefore, everything needs to be colored. But as you can see, even with this small brush, I can do one of these pieces quite quickly. Same thing for the deck here. Now the deck is a little smoother than the boards that were used for the sides of the building. But there is still wood grain in it. But again, we'll put it on. One of the things that we're going to do after I complete the structure itself is to use black chalk, black weathering powder, all around the bases of everything because of the coal dust that will be there. Okay, now as you see how we have light areas and dark areas and even darker areas. So next, I'm not going to bother switching brushes because these are both light colors. If I were going to use a dark color, then I would switch brushes. Well, let me write this out a little bit. And since we're going to be putting the gray the yellow right into the gray, we won't worry about it too much. But again, now with this, we're going to put even less of the yellow than we did with the gray because we want it very sporadic. Oops. And all this does is bring out highlights, the yellow. Places where things were spilled and stains were left. Places where the weather got in through the windows. But a whole lot less of the yellow. And as we do this, the wood starts to take on its base color. I want you to notice that this is not art. This is just applying color haphazardly to try and imitate the vagaries of nature. All right, and just a couple of more strokes. And there you have it. One thing, a little tip I might point out, chalk is not real expensive, but I don't see any point in wasting it. So I will put put this together, and I have an extra jar where I put mixed colors. Generally refer to it as mud. And I take these mixed colors, get over the edge here. I don't know if you can see this now, but I'm just brushing it into my little mud bucket here. And this can be used just for generic dark. So I will continue to color these parts, and then we will get to the substructure of the coal mine, which is going to be a different kind of wood, so it will be a different color. These pieces are part of the substructure. They hold the coal mine up over the railroad tracks where the coal cars come in to be loaded. And since this wood is more than likely creosote coated, it's going to be darker. The color I'm using here is called Earth. It came in a 4-pack of smaller colors. It's a dark rich brown, and we're going to apply it because I don't have the closely spaced boards that I did before. I'm going to use a larger brush, and also one that's a little more flexible because I want to throw the powder around before I start grinding it in. As you can see, I'm not grinding and pushing in now. I'm just kind of throwing it on light. But also remember, we're going to keep it sporadic. I don't want this brown to cover 100%. I want it to be dark in some places and lighter in others. And the main thing I want to avoid is getting too dark, because then we will obliterate the wood grains that I want to keep, because nothing helps make plastic look more like wood than to have wood grain. You'll also notice that every once in a while I'll use my finger. This helps push it in, and also the chalk comes off on my finger. If I think I have it too dark, you can also wet your finger and put it on to remove some. You can see how I made that a little lighter. I want to express to you one more time that this is not art. I am not agonizing over what color should go where. I am careful about the colors I choose, but when it comes time to apply them, it's not a matter of deciding how much goes where. You just put it on in a haphazard way. Then you can sit back and look at it, and if you decide that this spot right here is too dark, I wet my finger and I go in and I make it lighter. But as far as applying the color, it's just getting it out of the container and onto the part. So I use some of this spread around up here. And as you can see, we're going much faster now using the bigger brush. Okay. And I'm thinking that I might want a little yellow in this too. Or maybe Let's try a little white, since this is so dark. Now again, I want it dark. Let me pull this up here. The last piece we did, I want to I want to make sure it's a different kind of wood and it's a different color. So we've got to make it different. But let's finish up with this rich brown color. And I'm going to try a little white. It's called dirty white. And again, I will use my small light brush. I don't want to mix. I don't want to get any of that dark powder in my white container. So let's see what this looks like. Nope, let's go with the yellow. I'm not seeing the highlights well enough, and I think I'm going to like the yellow better. So we'll go back to the same dirty yellow that I used on the walls and put some in. Not everywhere, just in some places, and I think some of the darkest places would be the best. But again, we're going to have a little gray showing through in different places. The dark brown is going to be light brown in some places, darker in others. And we'll just add some yellow here and there, just to change the color so it's not all one color and not all one value of any single color. And I think I do like the dirty yellow better. Has more substance than white. Okay. Now, I'm much happier with that. Okay. So, I will continue to color these pieces on both sides, because in the open area, you know how open the substructure is, because there will be a train tracks going in there. So you'll be able to see everything. I will finish doing all of the substructure, and the only other color we're going to deal with will be the windows, and I will show you that next. Before I get to the painting of the windows and the handrails, I overlooked my shake shingles. Shake shingles are often made of cedar, which is a little reddish, so I'm going to use a red rust color. I'm also again using the larger, softer brush. And I'll apply it fairly liberally. But again, I want it darker in some places and lighter than others. This gives us different values of the color, where it's darker and where it's lighter. And also we'll leave just a tiny bit of the gray. And then, because it's not going to be just the one color, we're going to add another color, and I will probably use gray. I'll see how that works, and if that doesn't work properly, I'll try black or maybe my mud color. But I think gray will work fairly well. As you see, it just put it on. It barely took a minute to do the roof in red. Now I'll use the shorter bristle brush to put in the, well, let's go ahead and go with black. I think I have gray in there already where the where it doesn't show. Let's see how this looks. And as you see, I'm putting it in the grooves, and I'm keeping it in a downstroke, down and upstroke, not going across. And the reason for that is this gray weathering is caused by rain dripping down the shingles, and so it will be in straight lines all the way. You see that? It's again haphazard and catch as catch can, so it will look completely natural. Run it down like this. Now also, another thing that you can use the black for is, you notice there are several pieces of the shake shingles that are lifted, and you want to get dark in there. Wherever it's lifted, wherever there's a piece of shingle that's lifted, you want it dark in there, and then run the brush on top of it to get your straight down lines. Because we got to keep it dark where it's lifted, because that's tar paper under there. Alright? Here's another one. I'll get it dark underneath, and then get my vertical streaks with the powder that's left. So I will finish with my shake shingles, and then we'll go on to painting the window and the metal handrails. Alright, these are the window pieces, and I'm going to paint them. Usually when a person buys a bunch of windows to put in their building, they come already colored. So although the rest of the building was not painted, the windows would be. And I'm just slightly taking some white paint and running it over, because again, I don't care if I get it 100%. As you can see, the windows aren't even 100% there. I will also back these windows with some clear plastic, so that I can use my gray powder to make them look dusty, and also in areas where everything is broken away, the glass will be broken away there too. But again, just put it on lightly, and then later when we're dusting the windows, we'll be dusting the frame part too, because we don't want it real white. It may have been real white when it was new, but this building is decades old, maybe even a century old. It's not going to be a working mine on the layout that it will be on. It's going to be an abandoned mine. So everything is old and cruddy, so it doesn't make any difference. That's all I'm going to do to that. Now, the other part that I'm going to paint is going to be the some metal banisters that I have. Some of the banisters in this kit are wood and will be done the same way that the other wood is. But I have some metal banisters. You can see them right here. These are made of metal pipe. And it's already gray, which is a good old metal color. But I'm going to add to it. This is Model Master's acrylic rust is the color. I use rust to rust things, and also I found if you add a little red to it, it makes a wonderful red brick color. Okay, now for putting on the rust, I don't want it dark. I'm going to wipe off some of it and then just lightly brush it on like this. I don't want it on dark. I want to see the rust color, and I want to see the gray color of the metal. So once you get the paint on, wipe it off, and dry brushing is fast and easy. Remember, you want both colors, the rust color and the gray color. And it'll be done on both sides. You see how simple it is. Alright, so now that I've finished all the pieces, I will begin to assemble the model. I'll show you some quick progress of how it's done, and then at the end we'll do some coloring to put the black weathering powder to indicate coal dust. Okay, as you can see here, I've after finishing the model, I've started to build a diorama. And now you can see along the edges here I've placed used the grimy black powder, and up in here and down through here I've used that to indicate coal dust. But of course this mine's been abandoned 100 years and out in the open, subject to the weather, and most of the coal dust has washed away. And this is how you make wood look like plastic. And be sure and check my video how to build a diorama, and it will show you step by step how I built this diorama.